Welcome to Catholic Conversations. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca, and today we're going to be talking about the Jordan Peterson phenomenon, but also the Andrew Tate phenomenon. And if you don't know who Andrew Tate is, well, then you've been living under a rock like me, because I had no idea who he was until like 2 weeks ago. And I found out this guy existed because there is an intern who's working at the Guadalupe Radio Network where I work. And he was like, we were talking about how we got canceled off of YouTube a few times, where we got temporarily banned from a bunch of places. And he was like, oh, like Andrew Tate. And I'm like, who's Andrew Tate? He goes, yeah, he got banned for just speaking too much truth. And I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about, so I can't say anything about this guy. And so I was like, okay, well. And then I had someone else reach out to me and was like, oh, my little brother's obsessed with this Andrew Tate guy. And I'm like, why is everybody, who's this Andrew Tate guy? And so I'm like, okay, I need to know who he is because people are talking about him, so I should be informed. And so I started looking into this guy, and I did a deep dive, listened to like several of his interviews, one of his like 5-hour-long interview. And so I think I'm well acquainted with him. I've listened to a bunch of critiques about him as well to see what people are saying up against him and comparing and contrasting. And so we're going to be talking about that today. And I say we because I have my buddy Will on with me, who's going to be joining me, because we were just, after Sunday Mass, we got together and we were just chatting about it. And I thought it'd be a good idea to just have a conversation about this topic with a friend to just get a little bit of a different perspective. But before we jump into it, I always forget, so I just remembered right now, to remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment down below, all that jazz, share it with a friend, and I will harass you about it again at the end of the show, I guess. But without further ado, Will, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Praise be to God. It's good to have you on. Let's see. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to play a few clips of Andrew Tate. We're going to then have a little discussion about that clip in particular. And the idea is not to bash any of these people, and also not to promote either of these people, because I think they get a lot of things right, and that's why they're so attractive to a lot of young people today. But they also get things wrong, which is why they're so dangerous to young people today. And so we're going to just look at some of their clips. And one of the things I don't like about Andrew Tate, he's very vulgar. This says a lot of blasphemy, which is very bad. So I'm going to be trying to bleep all those out. I apologize if I miss any, but that's a big aspect of it as well. And Will and I have different opinions about things. We're both Catholics. We're both faithful Catholics. So these are going to be our opinions about these things. And it's okay if we disagree about them, but not necessarily that we have the same opinion about what it is. So we're going to have a discussion back and forth on this. And then at the very end, we'll give our general overview takes on who these people are and what criticisms are valid, what criticisms are not, and just get our general takes on it. So without further ado, Will, do you want to say anything about this whole phenomenon before we get started?
It's pretty crazy. I was following Andrew Tate on Twitter in like 2018, and he was saying basically the same stuff he's saying now. And he got banned off Twitter back then. And he was part of the, I don't know if you've heard of something called the manosphere.
No, I haven't.
It's basically a sort of secular reaction to feminism. It is like the MGTOW stuff.
Oh, okay. That's from people who don't know, that's the men go their own way.
Yeah, men going their own way, and
anti-woman, basically.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, anti-woman, anti-feminism, just like a strong reaction without any religious background to it. And so Andrew Tate was part of that. And back then, I followed a lot of those guys. Like, I don't know if you heard of Roosh V.
No.
He was another one of those guys. And he actually converted to Orthodoxy.
Oh, wow.
Which is, it's kind of crazy. But anyways, I stopped hearing about Andrew Tate because he got banned. And I think March, April, around the end of this year, I go through my YouTube shorts. That's what they call them, right? Pretty often. And I started getting Andrew Tate. And I was like, oh, forgot about this guy. And then as time went on, I would say like June and July, every single clip on YouTube Shorts was Andrew Tate. And I don't have TikTok, but apparently it was the same thing on TikTok. He's also on Instagram. And then everyone started having him on their podcasts. They realized having him on will get you millions of views, or 1 million views at least. And so everyone was having him on. All the people who are not right-wing even started having him on, which was pretty crazy. So his ideas started getting out there. So yeah, I think he's important because everyone knows about him now, and I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it is the fact that people will just ignore him and be like, oh, well, you just shouldn't talk about the guy, or they'll just straw man him. So I think it's good that we're talking about him.
Yeah.
But I'll play the first clip. And if you're listening, then you'll just hear it. But if you're watching, I'm going to be playing the clip so you can see the video element of it as well. But it's just him talking, so it's no big deal.
Only way to truly achieve individuality is usually a long, difficult road. It takes a long time to become an important man. And even what women expect of an important man, you need to be smart, charismatic, intelligent, strong, have a nice car, nice apartment, good network, good friends. You need to be able to handle stress. You need to be competent. There's so many things you need to be able to do. It's difficult for a young man to even have all these things. There's the reason women like older men. And people like attention, male and female. And I think we live in a world now with the internet where young men especially, instead of trying to go the very hard road of becoming a man who naturally garners attention due to his competence, instead think, well, this dance gets views. So if I do this stupid little dance, I'll get views.
Yeah, so I think that's, most of that, I think the reason why people would object to that statement, it's just because that he's a little abrasive. Because I don't see there's anything wrong with what he said there.
Yeah.
What's your general take, the first take? I'll let you get the first take on it.
He's right. Men have to grow up in ways that women don't. And like you said, that is why women tend to prefer older men who have learned a lot of these life lessons. And I think he's absolutely right. And I think when young men hear this, it resonates with them, because his thing is that he's very pro-man, and so he'll show the flaws of modern men, but he'll also bring them up. So I think having young men hear that is good because it keeps them from not wanting to grow and realizing that you do need to grow in competence and all these things. And he said, having the car and the apartment and there's that materialistic side to it, which, as Catholics, materialism is to be shunned. But generally speaking, speaking to secular people, that is what they care about. So
yeah, no, and I think you're right, because I think the other thing is that he's not saying necessarily, which he does believe this, but he's not saying in this clip, this is what's good. He's saying this is what women want.
Yeah.
And it's clear that is what women want. And whether or not if you believe in evolution, then people will say, okay, well, that's evolutionarily, you want the guy who's going to be successful. So that's going to be able to propagate your race. But even if you don't believe in evolution, it's still true in the microevolution sense of that's just in tribes and stuff. That's what you would want someone who's more wealthy. That's why people want to be married to the king, right? So those things are very true. And like you said, the problem with it is the materialism, is the idea that this is my goal, this is what I'm seeking after, and that's a problem. Though it's better, though, like you said, like if you're speaking to secular people, which is his audience, and which is why it's dangerous, but also good, which is why I don't want to condemn it necessarily, but also I don't want to promote it, is because people who are not being exposed to the Catholic faith are getting exposed to this. And so would I rather them get exposed to authentic Catholic ideas? Of course. But if they're going to be exposed to it because they're being told by society, well, the way to get the girl is you need to be a feminist. We need male feminists. You need to say my body, my choice. You need to say men don't get an opinion. You need to say, yes, dear, I'll go stay in my man cave. And you have to say these things. And if you say those things, then women will like you, which is not true. Yeah. And that's a huge issue. So I'll move over to the next clip, which is actually of Jordan Peterson. So I mentioned earlier, I didn't even talk about Peterson because everybody knows who Peterson is at this point. But Peterson is saying the same things as Andrew Tate, only he's less abrasive. He's older. He's actually very soft-spoken and meek. He's just trying to combat that a lot. And so he comes off very quiet, like an old man. And he is an old man. And so his are received better, I think. He's less vulgar. And so I think that's really the main difference of why people perceive them as so different, even though they're basically the same things. So here's a clip of him talking about feminism and the accusation that we live in a patriarchy.
That's not the patriarchy.
Well,
It's not the modern idea of the patriarchy, that's for sure.
I mean, so that's my idea of the patriarchy, which is a system of male dominance of society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
Very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
But I could say,
Yeah, so that's the thing there that's really good is the attack against the idea that women are oppressed and men have all the privilege. They have white male privilege is the big thing, which I guess it worked out that neither of us are white, so I guess that works for us. But I always say that. I always say, like, I'm so glad I'm not white, because white people are literally the only people you're allowed to be racist against.
Right.
It's the most whack thing ever. But the thing is here is that men, it's not about oppression. It's not that having that worldview of oppression is so bad. And we're going to play in a clip from Andrew Tate later where he talks about this mentality of oppression, of being a victim, of wanting happiness, of feelings. We'll play a clip on that later. But Jordan Peterson, what he's getting at here is, yes, people suffer. Everyone suffers. Men suffer too. In fact, it's debatably that men suffer more because men are taking the jobs that they're dying at. Men are going to war. And I mean, now we're trying to get women to go to war, but that's not right. When men go to war, men work high-risk jobs. Men work on high rises. Will, you're an electrician. Most of the people who are climbing these things, touching things that can shock you and kill you are men. So what did you think about this clip?
Yeah, very similar. This is the kind of stuff that was... that is spread in the manosphere. I guess you can call them like a community, where it's very pro men, and so they will again fight against the narrative that the women are massively oppressed and this and that, and so it's I heard a Catholic YouTuber say that this gives men a victim mentality hearing this stuff, but I think that it's good to hear the stuff. You don't dwell on it, but it's good because it goes against the narrative. And I think it's important that men's struggles are talked about.
Yeah, I agree. I think both those things are true. It's kind of, and I gave this analogy to you before, but I'll say it again for the audience's sake. It's like Professor Plinio, who is the founder of the TFP, and I talk about him quite a bit for anyone who listens regularly, but he talks about how if you have a metal bar, and it's bent out of shape, if you want to get it back into place, if you just bend it back out and then you let go of it, it'll bend back a little bit. And so in order to get it to actually come straight again, you have to bend past it and overcorrect. And then whenever you let go of it, it'll go back to equilibrium. And so in an ideal world, would it be okay? Would it be better or worse to talk about these issues that men saying like, oh, look, men are victimized too? No, I don't think we should be talking about victimization at all. But if we're going to be having a conversation about victimization, it's good to have both perspectives available and say, hey, look, men and women both have issues. We both deal with things, and we're just different. It's not that one is better or one is worse than another, and we can play the victim points all day. But look, everyone suffers. We all suffer. And that's the valley of tears that we live in. And that's the Christian aspect of it that's missing from it. Will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I just think men are tired of hearing about how oppressed women are and how bad everything is. And because in reality, it's way worse for a man now. And so having someone like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate, these big figures acknowledge the struggles of men, I think it endears them to these figures, and they're like, it helps them relate and be like, oh, he gets what I'm going through. And so it makes them more prone to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. So this next clip is pretty, it's not great. There's an element of truth to it, but it gets major things wrong about marriage and family. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. This is from Andrew Tate's brother, Tristan Tate, and this one will Tristan Tate. He's kind of like a whole entourage of people who kind of are part of the Andrew Tate crew, and they kind of say the same kind of thing. So I'm just kind of lumping them all together. So this is his brother, Tristan Tate.
I swear on my father's grave and the Lord be my witness.
See,
if one of my baby mamas tomorrow was just like, unless you do this or do this, I'm leaving with your kid and blah, blah, blah. I swear to God, I'd be like, you know what? Fine. My kid can find me when they're 16 or when they're 18. They'll track me down and I'll tell them their mom was. If you think I'm going to be paying bribes, essentially paying ransom, bending over backwards, sacrificing my pride, my lifestyle, changing the way I live, or she's going to run away. No, I don't negotiate with terrorists. I have my life to live. I swear.
Okay, I'll let you have first thoughts on this one.
Yeah, this is a common message in the manosphere, where it's like it's such an overreaction to feminism that it's to the point where you don't even care about these women. And so yeah, I think that clip is pretty bad. It's very typical for this kind of community. I don't know. I think what would be appealing to a man, just like a secular man that was watching that, is that hearing the dismissal of a woman like that. I think they'll think like, oh yeah, like, I shouldn't let a woman tie me down and have me do all these things. That's probably what's appealing to that, but obviously it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think a big number of this is the element of understanding the role of the woman and the role of the man, but then the error comes in and saying that what happens whenever it's disordered. Mm-hmm. And so should a wife run off with their kid? No. Should a wife submit to their husband? Yes, of course. It's in Scripture. I mean, to say otherwise is to say St. Paul and our Lord were wrong. Which there's people who say that. I should play the clip right here of the women singing. Don't listen to St. Paul. It's like they can't be more explicit than that. Yeah. But no, I mean it's in Scripture. Women should be subordinate to their husbands. But what if you're in a marriage or you're in a relationship? Which in this case, here's another problem. He's not even married to the women he's with. But let's say you're with a woman, you're married, and she's not being submissive. She's not fulfilling her role as a wife. She's not doing the dishes. She's not making a home. She's not cooking you meals. She's nagging you. She's just the stereotypical bad wife. What do you do as a man? Well, as a man, the answer is the answer that Christ gives us, which is to suffer and to endure the pain of having a bad wife. And you endure and you recognize the sacramentality of your marriage and you stay with that marriage. Because it's actually easier for you to run away, and it's cowardly to run away. It's the role of the man in masculinity, of authentic masculinity, to stay and fight. And the other problem is the view of salvation. Because if your wife is not living according to her state in life, that's going to be on her soul, because you are required by God to live according to your state. And if you fail to do that, that's going to be a sin on your soul when you show up to the pearly gates. And the same thing works in reverse, which people would then freak out about. So people might say, okay, that's fine. You can say that. But then if I say the other way around, if a wife has a husband who's a deadbeat husband, who is not making money for their family, who is even abusive, and people will be like, oh my goodness, you said abusive. Okay, I'm just going to say it because it's true. And people will freak out. But it's true. And just look at the saints. Look at Venerable Maria of Blessed Canori Mora. Look at Saint Monica. Look at many of the saints who are married. All these women saints are examples of this act. They lived in abusive relationships. What do? They stayed and endured the abuse. They offered up those sufferings for the salvation of souls, but most primarily for the salvation of souls for their husband. And Blessed Canori Mora, her husband tried to murder her on multiple occasions. And she stayed with her husband, and it was by her suffering that her husband converted and ended up becoming a priest after her death. Like, that is an amazing thing. You have to have a supernatural worldview on these things. And if you fail to have them, you end up with these ideas. I'll let you, if you have anything else, Will.
Yeah, well, that's what women are told. If a woman has a bad husband or is in a bad marriage or whatever, they're told by literally everyone, their friends, their family, their coworkers, to leave. And so that's why you get such a strong reaction the other way from guys like Tristan Tate and all these other guys. I mean, it's just a big reaction to the feminism.
Big time. So this next clip is actually kind of a positive clip. I actually don't have anything wrong with this clip whatsoever. And so I think it'll be a good, interesting thing to talk about. It's about brotherly love. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but here's the clip.
Do you guys ever hug each other?
I hug people. There's nothing wrong with hugging people. There's nothing wrong with being.
Do you ever hug each other though?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is wrong with that? It's not like
There's nothing wrong with that.
Shake hands, hug each other. I think that a lot of modern society, and I really dislike this, is trying to make platonic male friendships gay, or trying to make fun of platonic male love and platonic male friendships. I love my friends. I take a bullet for my friends. I've stood up against armed men for my brother. When you read classical literature, if you're a fan of Alexander Dumas and you read his Three Musketeers novels, they'll say things to each other like, I love you with all of my heart. And that was written in the 1800s. Nowadays, you tell your friend that and suddenly people want to make fun of you. People want to call you gay. That's there's nothing wrong with loving your friends and loving your brothers and giving them hugs, and it's very healthy.
Do you love your friends, Matt?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that's good enough. The rest of that, I mean, what, I don't understand why that's controversial. And it's really not until the modern era where people wanted to, like you said, make everything gay. Everything has to be gay, which was very evident recently with the article that came out that James Martin shared. I don't remember who published the article itself, but it might have been Pathos. But the article was saying how all these saints in the past were all homosexuals. And then evidence for this was things like, whoa, did you know Saint Bernard and Saint, I don't remember who the other saint was, and this Saint so-and-so, they used to hang out together all the time. They would write letters and say how they loved each other. And get this, whenever he died, he gave his habit to his friend. Obviously, they're gay. And that's absurd. It's so absurd. And this is one of the main problems. Is because we have not allowed authentic male relationships, authentic male friendships that can be platonic and that can be more than just, hey, buddy, and it's like shoulder bump, whatever. Like having real male friendships where you love each other, where you will the good for each other, then we create toxic masculinity, because now every man's an island, when man should not be an island. We're not made to be islands. We have to have friendships, which is so evident in the church by the religious orders, by the monastic communities, even the hermits. You lived in communities. They just had their own hermitages, and they would gather together for the celebration of the Mass and things like that. But other than that, they'd be alone. So even in the most extreme aspects of it, where you're a hermit, it still had an element of a community and of brotherly love. Will, what's your take?
Yeah. So when I was reading Lord of the Rings a few years ago, I started going into Lord of the Rings forums and stuff. And for whatever reason, people are obsessed with the idea of Frodo and Sam being like gay for each other. And Lord of the Rings fans are like obsessed with that. And it's the same thing where any authentic relationship between two men is always going to be branded as gay, as you're saying. And he made the example of that old book, I think the Three Musketeers. I bet there's a bunch of articles about how all those guys were gay or whatever, and it's ridiculous. So I think this is a really good message, and it's good for young men to hear that and not being like, oh, well, I don't want to do this because I don't want to be made fun of, and have these women be like, oh, they're gay. And
yeah, and it's funny because, I mean, I'm going to expose some secrets of the man world to the public right now. But it's like, there's a common joke among guys. It's like, it's not gay to kiss your buddies, or it's not gay to kiss your homies. And it's like, all these things like that are a reaction to people saying, like, you cannot have close male friendships. All your male, and that's another thing. If we do not have close male friendships, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with close female relationships. Mm-hmm. And close female relationships are not actually possible. And this is going to be another thing that's going to be controversial. But anyway, females and males cannot truly be close friends. You can have women who are acquaintances, but you cannot really have females as close friends that you talk to regularly, because it always has an attractive element to it. And so it's different whenever you're single, but whenever you're married, then a man should not have close female relationships. It should not. It's a near occasion of sin. But if a man cannot have close friendships where you bare your heart to your buddies, well, then who are you going to bare your heart to? Well, the only socially acceptable thing is to have a female friend to do it with, and that sets up an occasion for immorality. It sets up an occasion for cheating. And not everything you can share with your wife. Because, for instance, if you're having financial troubles and you know, I need some advice, I don't want to stress my wife out at this moment, it's good to talk to your friends about these things. It's good to talk about these things. And of course, you shouldn't denigrate your wife. You shouldn't denigrate your family situation. That should never be done. But at the same time, there should be a situation where you can talk to men as men and be able to bare your soul and your heart to your buddies without it being considered homosexual.
Yeah. And so really what it boils down to is that women will never understand men. It doesn't matter if it's your mom, your wife, anyone, they will never understand you. And women think they will understand you and they can understand you, but they're wrong. And so you need male friends and you need close male friendships. And both Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate talk to, it seems like their main audience is disaffected young men that probably don't even have these friendships. And so that's why it's good for them to hear this stuff, because you need those male friendships. And, you know, it's like you said, you can't tell your wife everything. And it's like a lot of times, like, telling women certain things will harm their reputation of you in their heads, even if it's on a subconscious level. And so I think the male friendship is extremely essential. And without it, I think you do end up lonely. Like a lot of these guys that they're talking to, they're always talking about how lonely men are emailing them saying how they change their lives and stuff. And this is why, because they're hearing things like this from them. And you know, these guys with only female friends, it's no way to live.
Yeah. Yeah, especially since it's like one way. So the women will be like not interested entirely in a romantic relationship. And the guy is like secretly like, I want to be in a romantic relationship with this person. So it's a serious issue. And I think, like you said, men will never understand women. Women will never understand men. That's just the way we are. You can never know the interior life of someone else, which goes into the transgender thing, is like a man can never become a woman because a man doesn't know what a woman is like. You know what a woman acts like. You know what a woman does physically, because we can see what they do and how they act and how they dress. And that's why transgenderism is always literally skin deep, which brings us right into the next point, which is some of the biggest errors of Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, which is their position on gay marriage and transgenderism. And I should have clipped something from Jordan Peterson, but basically he says the exact same thing. He's okay with Dave Rubin, who's a famous homosexual podcaster who has an alleged marriage with a man and allegedly has a child, which, I mean, he's gay. How can he have a child? He had a surrogacy. He had a woman implanted with I don't even know how to even talk about this. With his child? I don't even know. Is it his child? Dude. I don't even know.
I don't want to know.
He paid a woman to carry a child for him and then took the child from her and then took it as his own with his false husband, whatever. Anyway, so that's going to be a clip on Andrew Tate about that and see what your take is on it.
What do you think of transgenders going and reading nursery stories and playing
Leave the kids alone. If you want to chop your dick off, I have nothing against that. I'm not anti-gay. I'm not anti-transgender. I'm not anti any of these things. What I am anti is propagating your worldview on other people's children. If you're gay and you can't have kids, why do you now believe it's your right to go to other people's kids and tell them how to think? If you've decided that the type of sex you want to have will prevent you from procreating, that's your decision, right? You've decided that having sex with women isn't worth it for you. You don't want to have children. You want to have sex with men. Fine, your decision, and you're entitled to it. That does not give you the entitlement to go to other people's families who did decide to have children and raise them and try and program their children. Leave the kids alone. You can be as transgender as you like. Don't come talk to my kid about it. That's my child. I will program my child with my worldviews. I raise them. I pay for them. They're my kid. They're not your kid. And they're not the government's kid.
Okay, let you have first take.
Well, on one hand, I think it's good to hear that, that you're the one that's going to, like you said, program your kids, which is, I mean, it's true. You're the one that's going to raise them. And so, you know, a lot of these events like the drag queen story hours, aren't there a lot of men or husbands that go with their wives and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for men to hear that you're the one that's going to be raising them. And then, like you said, on the flip hand, these guys are like basically libertarians. So they're not going to denounce homosexuality and things like that just because I don't really think it benefits them in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think overall it's a good message, but of course there's, you know, that caveat there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the element where he's saying like, oh, you know, the government doesn't control it, isn't the kids don't belong to the government. That's a good point because they don't belong to the government, and the government wants to take over your children. And his points about like gays can't have kids, therefore they try to take yours. It's literally true.
Oh yeah, that's kind
it's
of like
literally
implicit
true.
in there in that message.
He basically says that, and I think that's literally true. We just saw it with Dave Rubin, and it was before the whole surrogacy thing. It was true in the sense that they try to indoctrinate your kids by taking over the school system, by taking over the internet, by taking over media, and try to indoctrinate your kids that way. But now they're literally trying to take your kids. They're trying to adopt your children. And that's why you see that fight happening. But then, like you said, the fact that they're like, I'm not anti-gay, I'm not anti-transgender. You should be. You should be. And the word anti means against, right? So people are like, oh, that means you want gay people to die. It's like, I'm against homosexuality. I'm against transgenderism. So I'm anti-gay, I'm anti-transgender. I'm not against the person, and I talked about this if you listen to my podcast, the last episode on What is Truth, I talked about toleration. So you can tolerate something, and you cannot tolerate other things. So what do I mean? You can tolerate the sin, or the sinner rather, and you are intolerant of the sin. So we can ban certain sins without just hating the person. It's the trope, hate the sin, love the sinner. It's true. It's a true trope because yes, you have to tolerate those who are doing evil sometimes, but we can never tolerate sin. And sin has no rights. Error has no rights. And that's very, very important. And these people are saying these things. And so you get a lot of men who are acting macho, but then they're not standing up against the things that are the gravest evils. Okay, I'm against indoctrinating the children. But how do you think we got to this point? How did we think we got to the point where these things are happening? Well, we got to the point here because we didn't stand up against it when it was over here. And so it just started trucking along until we got to the point where they're in the school system, adopting our children, having gay marriage on our legal books. These things didn't happen overnight. It happened because men failed to stand up and fight against it, which is why society castrated men to begin with. And that's a huge problem with these, because these men fight for themselves. And that's not what a man does. A man fights for others. He doesn't fight to have himself have wealth. He fights for society. He fights for Christendom. He fights for Christ the King. He fights for Our Lady. And we should talk a little bit about Our Lady in relation to this, but we'll save that for when we talk about women. And the other thing is he talks about transgenderism. He's like, yeah, if you're a grown man and you want to trans yourself, go ahead. I disagree with that too. Like, would you allow someone to commit suicide in front of you? If someone was going to blow their brain off, you're like, well, your choice. Go blow your brain off.
They do think that.
I
don't know about him specifically, but like the world at large, basically, they think that, right? Assisted suicide and all that stuff.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
And so the thing about that is that's the modern conservative movement in a nutshell. It's like they don't want to get to the root of the problem. And that's what this is. It's like, yeah, I'm against indoctrinating children, but you don't want to get to the root of the problem. And that's how conservatives are for basically everything. So I'm not very surprised that that's their take. That's the popular conservative take. It's basically just to be like a liberal from like 30 years ago.
Yeah, honestly. Less day by day.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next clip is about discipline. And so this is actually, I think, mostly good, but we'll see what you think.
I think a man should have absolutely no interest in whether he's actually happy or not. If I wake up and I'm unhappy, I will do the exact same things as if I am happy. I will go to the gym. you're going to end up being happier without actually analyzing if you're happy or not.
Okay, so that's a mostly good, I think, but I think the element of a problem is their definition of happiness and success. So I say, don't think about whether or not you're happy. Think about whether or not you're successful, and things like that. Well, the problem is, what are we defining here as happiness? What are we defining as success? If by happiness he means a feeling, like you're feeling good today, like you're feeling like your tummy doesn't hurt, your head doesn't hurt, things like that. If that's how you're feeling, well, then yeah, he's right. But if he means happiness in the Thomistic sense, which obviously he doesn't, but this is what he should mean, Thomas would define happiness as the good, right? And so he's talking about, like, what is it that makes you happy? Ultimately, it is God. It is the good. And the good ultimately is God. And so everything that we strive for, so if we want a candy bar and we eat the candy bar and we're like, oh, that made me happy. Well, that is a fleeting happiness because we saw a good in it. And then we consumed it, but then that good is now gone. And St. Thomas actually talks about this in his commentary on I believe it's Romans. He says, one has true peace of heart when he has everything that he desires and he does not fear losing it. Now, if you're a secularist and you read that, you're like, yes, that means I have to have a lot of power. That means I have to have everything so people can't take it away from me. I have to have a ton of money, where he talks about how he has so much money. I didn't clip this part. Where he has so much money that nobody can mess with him. No one can take it away from him. And his money's not wrapped up in government things, so they can't just take their money away. But the problem is, St. Thomas is not talking about that. He's talking about if you have your happiness in God and in God alone, then nothing else will disturb you. And it kind of grows into Stoicism, which he's into. This idea that if I have God and God alone, you can take away everything. You could take away my family. You could take away my money. You could take away my friends. You could take away my honor, my pride, everything away from me. And I will still be happy, because my happiness is not in the fleeting things of the world. My happiness is in God. If I put my happiness in things that die, if I put my happiness in the fleeting things of the money, of pride, of these things, those things can be taken away. They can die. They can be gone. And then where will I be? And that goes into his commentary on success. If your idea of success is wealth, is power, is cars, is women, those things are fleeting, and they will ultimately leave you unhappy. They will ultimately leave you to despair, because those things go away. We have to consider success ultimately as getting to heaven. Because if you do not get to heaven, if souls are lost, all is lost. So we should strive to have our goal be to get to heaven, to run the race and join the church triumphant. The church militant is us on earth, and the church triumphant is them in heaven. And we should strive after that. Will?
Yeah, so I agree. The thing is, nobody actually knows what happiness is. Mm-hmm. Every time anyone says anything about happiness, they're talking about the feeling. And so, like you said, if you take happiness as that feeling, then what he's saying is true. And I do think that it's important for young men to hear that, because a lot of people these days will say, follow your feelings, follow your heart. Basically, when someone says follow your heart, that's what they're saying. And he's saying, no, do what you have to do. Go to the gym, go to work, whatever it is that your duties are, do it regardless of how you're feeling, essentially is what he's saying. And I do think a lot of young men need to hear that, especially the ones that don't have fathers around and tell them that, because as we're going to get to in a later clip, women or mothers will typically allow men to skip out on duties if they're not feeling good. And so I do think that it is a good message in that sense. And then, of course, the materialism with Andrew Tate's, always there, and it's in this clip too, which, like you said, it's not good, but I do like that. I'd rather a young man hear this than, oh, follow your heart, all that stuff, all that nonsense.
I agree, and I'm glad you said that, because I kind of forgot to say the good part about it, which was, like you said, the good part is that, yes, if you're not feeling good that morning when you wake up, you still got to do the thing. Maybe I should skip over to the Jordan Peterson one that he talks about the same thing, so it'd be a good balance for it to talk about. But yeah, if you're not feeling good, that's okay. If you're not feeling good, you still got to do the thing.
And no one's going to have sympathy for you besides like your mother.
Yeah.
Right? And so nobody's going to care. Oh, you're not feeling good. You had a bad day. No one's going to care. If you're a man, honestly, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is right. You have to go do it because you can't just complain because nobody's going to care. I saw a comment in one of his videos where it's like if a woman starts crying in like public, everyone's going to come up to her and try to comfort her, and she'll probably have 20 guys there trying to see what's wrong. But, if a man starts crying in public, then, everyone's going to be weirded out. And, not saying that men should cry in public, but the point is no one is going to care about you as a man in that way. So you need to not give into that, like what he's saying.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I think that's a huge element to this is the idea that we really have to you have to have control over your emotions, and you have to be able to do the thing even if you don't want to. It goes into the vice of effeminacy, which people get conflated with femininity, but effeminacy with an E before it is nothing to do with being womanly. It's actually what St. Thomas says, effeminacy is a softness, which is a unwillingness to suffer. And men need to suffer. We have to suffer. If we do not suffer, we cannot be men. We remain as boys forever. We have perpetual adolescence, which is why men get married at 25 or older nowadays, 30 years old, whereas before you would have people who are 16, 17 getting married. How is that possible? It's because we've made life so comfortable and made it so unwilling to suffer that men never grow up. They never become men. You have 40-year-old boys walking around. And Jordan Peterson talks about this in this next clip, so I'll play that next.
6, you're in grade 1. Maybe you're feeling a little ill. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're playing with being a little ill. Your mom comes downstairs and says, you've got a test today at school. Maybe you haven't quite prepared for it. Maybe you should have. And she says, but you seem to have a tummy ache. Maybe you're too sick to go to school. And the kid thinks, maybe I could just stay home and I wouldn't have to take that test and I wouldn't have to confront the world. And he says, yeah, Mom, my stomach really hurts. And away we go. The child has made a choice. And that's a catastrophic choice. And you think, well, children shouldn't be held accountable for choices they make at that age. It's like,
that child's soon going to be an adult that's going to make very similar decisions.
So yeah, it's a great point from Peterson. And it's kind of the same point that Tate was making in a different way. But yeah, if your habits become who you are. Your habits become who you are. The more you do a thing, the more it habituates it. So you had a good take about this earlier when we were talking before we started rolling. You want to say that again?
About like the father being around and
right.
stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a horrible habit to have. Like Andrew Tate was saying, it doesn't matter how you feel. You have to go take the test, right? If you didn't study and you're going to fail, well, now you're going to learn your lesson next time, and you're going to know, well, now I have to study. But now next time, you're going to have an out and be like, well, I'll just skip the next one too. And then it just steamrolls throughout your life. And so mothers really tend to do that. They'll let their sons or daughters, or I'm mostly focusing on men here, but they'll let their sons skip out on things if they're not feeling like doing something. And that's why the men without fathers around are doomed, because they're not going to have the father that's there making them do that thing. Mm-hmm. For example, son, come out and mow the lawn with me. Well, I don't feel like doing that. I want to be inside in the AC. Oh, well, we're going to go do it. And a mom is not going to do that to their son.
Yeah.
It's not going to say, hey, look, we have to go mow the lawn. Oh, it's too hot. It's too hot today, right? You can't mow the lawn today. It's too hot. It's like, no, go mow the lawn. You have to take care of your house. So go mow the lawn. And so that's why I really like these clips from both of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I noticed that in my own life. I'm thinking of like many, many occasions. I'm thinking specifically whenever I wanted to play, when I was playing football, if it was like, oh, my mom coming in, don't work them so hard, don't do the X, Y, or Z. And that's not bad for mothers to do that, because that's the mom's role. The mom's role is to be the comforter. The mom's role is to be the advocate. Mom's role is to be like, it's in her nature, very literally, because in the womb, which is this is why it's so perverse. Abortion is so perverse, but the abortion is wrong for many reasons. This is one of them, is the fact that the womb is the most safe place for the baby. The baby has no worries, has no pain, has no suffering. The baby is in complete comfort, wrapped in his mother's very body. And the mother, after the child is born, seeks to recreate that for her child, seeks to comfort the child, make their life easy. And it's not out of some malice, it's out of love. The mother desires that. It's in her nature to do that. But it's the nature of the father to combat that and to make him into a man, is to conquer those things, that the softness of the boys, and say, hey, no, sorry, I know, honey, that you want him to be nice and comfortable, but he has to do this. And you have to send him out into battle. You have to send him out into discomfort. You have to send him out into suffering. And I'm thinking about myself now when I'm saying this, is like, I think about myself whenever you gave the example of cutting the yard. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I literally did the exact same thing where I'm like, oh, I don't want to, it's hot outside.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, can you blame a child for acting that way? I mean, they're children. So yeah, we're going to say that. And my mom's like, oh, don't make him go outside. And my dad's like, no, he's coming out with me. He drag you outside.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to escape back into the indoors, and dad has to keep dragging me outside. And that's a perpetual problem until you become a man, until you are forced to do it. Because, I mean, if we give him the choice, you won't do it, right? And so I think that's a great analogy. And it's nothing wrong with the man or the woman, the mother or the father. It's just the roles. But if you do not have the role of the father, then, like you said, they're doomed.
Yeah, they really are. It's so important. If the boy never becomes a man, then no woman's gonna want him. He's gonna have a hard time making a living. It's gonna be horrible, because the man is not a woman where she's gonna have some guy provide for her because she looks pretty. So it's just completely different. So it's very essential for the man to go out and do these things and to have someone pushing them, which is the role Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate play, is pushing these guys online that find these clips to go out and do something. So.
Yep. Okay, this next clip, I actually have no idea what it is, so I can't set it up. I can't remember why I clipped this one, so we're about to find out. Hopefully it's not crazy. Let's see if I can pull it up.
There's absolutely nothing necessary about masculinity in the modern world, and that you don't need to be strong or brave or any of these things. You can sit around and cry and you're still a man. That is not true in most places on the planet. In most places on the planet, men need to be capable and competent, because if they don't, they do not survive. And I'll tell you something now, sir. I'll tell you something else now. You will sit here and talk right now about the patriarchy and how you can be in touch with your feelings and all this. The second you're physically assaulted or physically threatened, the first thing you do is you call a toxically masculine police officer to turn up with a weapon to protect you, because you cannot protect yourself. You are not against the idea of masculine power. You're not against the idea of men who have masculine imperatives to defense. All you've done is outsource it to someone else to do at the end of a phone call because you're too scared to do it yourself. So you're fucking lying.
Okay, so minus the bad language, for y'all who are not watching it, this guy is wearing a Britney Spears shirt, and he has pink hair. So just as context for who he's talking to. And I forgot that I clipped this. This is hilarious. So this is so true. This is very true, because he talks about men needing to overcome their feelings. Because yes, men have feelings too. Of course we have feelings. There's the what's it called? The ad from the soap brand. What's it called? I'm forgetting the name of it. It stars that dude who, the black guy, what's his name? This soap brand. I can't remember his name. Old Spice. There we go. Old Spice. And the Old Spice commercials, they talk about he's like, men have skin too. And it's like a joke about like men need soap. Like, why is all the advertising soap for women? But it's a kind of a joke about men have feelings too. And yes, men do have feelings too. But it's the man's role to not suppress the feelings, but conquer their feelings, to conquer them and put them in the right place. And so then he also talks about toxic masculinity. He goes, yeah, men need to be manly. They have to have strength. They have to be able to fight. They have to be able to do things. If you're in a situation where you're in danger, you don't want I'm trying to think of the right word, a feminist man on your side when you're in a fight. You want masculine men. You want the toxic men to be on your side whenever you have a fight. Like if I was getting in a fight, I know which guys of my friends that I would want by my side. And all of them would be considered by the culture as toxic masculine men. Why is that? Because they're trying to make men weak because weak men make hard times, and that's what they want from us. Your take?
Yeah, it's a great clip. Men need to hear that. And what was he saying in the first part again?
Modern world, and that you don't need to be strong or brave or any of these things. You can sit around and cry and you're still a man. That is not true.
Yeah. So, and you hear this from women. Women will be like, oh, it's okay to cry, or, it's good when men show their emotions. But then as soon as a man cries or shows their emotion, these women are repulsed. So you can't listen to women about any of this. And so young men hearing Andrew Tate, ones without strong father figures or maybe no father figure at all in their lives, they have to hear this. And it really resonates with men because from their life experiences, they know it to be true that, no one cares about the man's feeling. And so I think it's a great clip.
No, yeah, I didn't even think about that point. That's a good point as well. The idea that of women tell men you need to be in touch with their feelings. You need to cry. It's okay to cry.
And they're repulsed by it.
Yeah, they
utterly repulsed by it.
And then they pretend that they're not.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good point. Women, it's part of the feminist movement to make men act like women and make women act like men. That's why you see women putting on shoulder pads, wearing the suits, putting on men's clothing, cutting their hair, trying to abort their babies because they want to get rid of their reproductive power and turning themselves into men. But then you can never truly become a man. And so what you also have to do is you have to lower men into getting rid of their masculinity into becoming feminine. So now you have men being weak and poor versions of women, and women being weak and poor versions of men. And so now you just have an entire weak and poor culture by destroying both sexes. And men, is the biggest target on this in terms of modern world, because they tell men these things, but no one actually believes it. They think they believe it, and they try it out because they're like, okay, well, they say women want a sensitive man. No, they don't. They don't want a sensitive man. That's not true. There's a reason why you see the trope of the nice guy who finishes last, the nice guy who doesn't get the girl, who's friend zoned. That whole idea comes from this mentality.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this next clip is, let's see, Tristan Tate's take on a high value woman. This is going to be very controversial, so we'll play it and we'll get your take on it. But
what are your thoughts about Cheyenne as a woman? He means Cheyenne Reynolds from the show Grilling.
The one clip that stood out for me is when she was talking about, because she's successful, she has a podcast and she probably has a bit of money. Well, I'm a high value woman, trying to compare herself to Andrew, who was saying he was a high value man. What I would say is I don't think she has an understanding of what a high value woman is. A high value woman is a really, really beautiful, well-spoken 21-year-old virgin who's never been on the arm of another man and is exclusively
Finally!
yours. Yeah. And I'm not saying that all women should be that. I'm not saying I would only date a woman who was that. I was saying that is the definition of a high value woman, because men need to build themselves up, whereas women just need to maintain what they already are. So, this woman's sitting in the face of someone as smart as my brother, talking about having a high body count, not being that particularly attractive. And because she's, I guess, successful on YouTube, saying she's a high value woman, that clip stood out to me. And I thought, this woman has no idea what men want. I don't want a woman who's 36 and, 7 out of 10 with a body count of 100 because she has a YouTube channel. I'm not interested in that. And I'm sure you will find somebody who is interested in that. And good luck to you.
Okay, your take?
Yes. So like you were saying about women putting on the suits and stuff, women are taught now, even by their parents, by public schools, by the media, by shows, by celebrities, that to be a high value woman, you have to be successful. Basically, you have to be a man. You have to compete with men, have a career, have money, have stuff. So basically trying to take the place of a man. And so that I'm not surprised that woman that Andrew Tate was talking to in that interview that's being referenced, that I'm not surprised she considers herself a high value woman, because I doubt anyone has really ever told her what an actual high value woman was, especially when she was young. Like Tristan Tate is saying, a 21-year-old virgin, never been with another man. That is a high value woman. That's what men want. Mm-hmm. And there's another clip on some other podcast Andrew Tate was on where he said he'll go out with some women and they'll be talking about all these experiences they've had, all these countries they've been to. And he said how that's such a turnoff, because what men want the woman who's never been anywhere. You want to be the one to take her to these places and show her. And so nobody tells women this these days. And so no woman is trying to be an actual high value woman. It's pretty crazy. And so I think it's great. It's awesome for young men to hear this on a mass scale like the Tate brothers are being put on, because when men start seeking an actual high value woman, when they start making it known that their preferences are, young virgins that don't have a lot of life experience in like traveling and stuff and things like that, then men will start seeking the right things and they'll stop putting up with the feminists. I think if a lot of men stop putting up with the feminists, I think it's for the better. And I think it's a great message, very anti-feminist message, very anti-modern woman message. And I think a lot of men, like you said, it was going to be controversial because women will hear this and say it's sexist and misogynist. And I think that's great. I think men need to be more like that. If you want to call it sexist, then so be it. I think men need to be more sexist and reject these women and tell them that they're disgusting, right? Quite frankly. And that was what was appealing of the manosphere movement. I don't know how that whole manosphere thing is these days, but that was a message back then where it's like rejecting these women with high body counts and try to pretend like they're men, like just reject all of that.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why I think it's controversial, and I would generally agree with what you're saying, but I'd push back just a little bit and say that, the thing I disagree with is to say like, okay, these women are disgusting and we should reject them. In a sense, I agree, because I wouldn't want a woman like that. it's very clear like that. What he's saying is true. I agree with what he's saying. That my ideal woman would be what he's describing. However, I think the problem is women weren't told this.
Yeah. And
it's kind of the same way that we talk about men and we say, okay, well, men, we weren't told how to be men. We weren't taught. We didn't have fathers. We didn't have these things. And I say we generally because, I had a good father. So not to say anything bad about my dad because he's great. But we didn't have these things. And the same thing is true for the women. They were indoctrinated and brainwashed. Now, the women of the first wave feminist movement, maybe even second wave feminist movement, have a little more culpability, or a lot more culpability because they started it. Mm-hmm. But the women now are born into the culture where every TV show, every movie, every book, all of culture is screaming at them that they need to be like men. And so whenever they're told this, they have a violent reaction against it. Why? Because they've already done it. It's too late. You can't become a virgin again. Once you've done it, well, now you have to and I talk about this before when I talk about compromising on your values, when I talk about communion on the hand and why I would not give communion on the hand and I would not become a short-hand minister, is because once you do something that is against your values, you have to justify it to yourself. And if you justify it to yourself, you have to justify it for everyone else. And so these women have done these things already. And now they have to justify it, say it's okay. In fact, it's not just okay, it's good. And I have to convince everyone else that that's true. And that's why you have these really loud feminists who scream, who cut their hair, dye their hair pink, dye their hair blue, and force feminism down the throats of everyone because they've already made the mistakes. And when they're told this, they don't know what to do. Now, there is repentance, there is confession, and this is the element that is missing from the Tates. You can repent. You can confess your sins. You can become better. You can change your life. And there will be some men out there who will love you and who desire that, who will desire a woman who is good and holy after she's repented. But they won't desire you now. They won't desire you if you continue that way. But, like he said, a high-value woman, the ideal woman, is what he was describing, which goes into the Christian faith, which comes into the Catholic faith. Fulton Sheen wrote the book, The World's First Love, where he talks about the Blessed Virgin Mary. He talks about at the beginning of time, in the mind of God, he had Our Lady in his mind, and he loved her, and he desired her. And when he created his mother, he created her perfect with all virtue. She's the ever virgin. She is the model, Fulton Sheen says, she is the model which every man loves. Every man loves Our Lady first and foremost. Even if he doesn't know her, his ideal woman in his head is actually the Blessed Virgin Mary. And he's describing it too. He's like, I want a virgin who doesn't have never been with any other man, who's young, who's beautiful, who's these things. What is he describing? He's describing the Blessed Virgin Mary, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't know
Well spoken.
Well spoken. All these things. Our Lady she pondered these things in her heart. She wasn't nagging. She wasn't talking all the time. And so too was St. Joseph. St. Joseph wasn't bombastic and yelling and things like that. He was quiet. He was meek. These are the elements. These are the virtues of an ideal family, of an ideal father, and of an ideal mother. But we're talking about women at the moment. So Our Lady, her image as the ever virgin, that is what a man wants. A man wants someone who is pure. He wants someone that'll be that person for them, that'll be true to only them. And this is why people have religious life, how people seek religious life, because they want to have that in perfection. Because then you're defending the virginity of Our Lady. You're defending purity and chastity. It's a battle. And maybe we could talk about religious life later on, but that's kind of that element if you wanted to contribute. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, you're making a good point about these women that weren't told these things and repentance and stuff. And I agree, 100% agree. It's just the thing is 99% of women are nowhere even close to even wanting to change. So those women need to be shunned. And Andrew Tate telling this to other men is very encouraging, because I want the men around me. I want us to collectively shun these women, and maybe they'll start to change. Maybe. But yeah, I just wanted to add that final point to it.
Yeah, shame is actually a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So shame makes people repent and change their ways. If you make shameful things should be shamed, and things that are not shameful should not be shamed. So nowadays we have an inverse society. Things that are evil are promoted, whereas things that are good are shamed. So.
And then another point is that if men don't hear this, they're gonna have to put up with those kinds of women, because they're just gonna be like, well, this is just how things are now. This is just how women are, and but it's like you don't have to put up with it. And so the more guys like Andrew Tate say things like this, and the more other men that listen to Andrew Tate spread these ideas amongst themselves, I think we're going to be better off in the long run.
All right, so this next clip is kind of funny. So he's kind of making fun of a young fan of his, and he's talking about like smoking cigars, things like that, and why he's like,
Tristan Tate?
Yeah, it's like stop being a LARPer, basically.
Guys, if you're watching, stop doing this. They take photos of themselves. They're 18, cigar in their mouth, selfie. Put it. They upload it to Instagram. They tag me, and they're like, look, I'm like Tristan Tate. And I'm like, you think the cigar makes me? Like, in what universe are you living that you think putting a cigar in your face makes you me? I didn't smoke my first tobacco product till I was 28 years old. And you got 19-year-olds stuffing cigars in their face saying I'm like Tristan Tate. These are people with a complete lack of understanding of the cards they actually have in their hand. They've got nothing. And they're betting big, trying to show off on Instagram, trying to like rub shoulders with me. I'm like, in what universe am I going to message you? Yeah, bro, you're so cool. Let's get together.
Okay, yeah. So that's pretty funny, and I think that's good, because he's saying like, look, there's nothing wrong with having a cigar, nothing wrong with having a drink, but stop LARPing. Stop thinking that if you do these things that you're going to be cool, you're going to be just like everyone else. It's not the externals that make you a good person. It's actually doing the thing. It's being virtuous. Now, obviously, he's not talking about virtue, but the idea is the same. Thoughts?
Yeah. Poor fan. I think it just shows there's a lot of young men out there that are trying to emulate these guys. They're trying to be like them. He took the harsh approach, the harsh truth approach. But I think seeing the good in having all these 18-year-olds tagging him is that they're listening to the Tates. And like you said, it's not a wholly good thing, but it's way better than what men are being fed on the other side of it. So it really just clips just shows their influence and how real it is and how you can't ignore it.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem with men today. The manosphere, as you might call it.
Yeah.
The idea that, okay, well, I need to be a man, therefore I need to smoke cigars and drink whiskey. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with those things. And I think those things are actually good because it builds community. It's an opportunity to get together with your buddies and do something that's exclusively male, that is it's something that takes practice, because you don't like a cigar the first time you try it. People get tobacco sickness, or people don't like the taste of the whiskey. They don't like the taste of the beer, and you have to develop these tastes. And so there's something virtuous about it, about doing it with other men. However, the externals don't make a man. It's virtue that makes the man. And I know this is not what he's saying, but I'm taking what he's saying and making it something that's good. You need to be virtuous to be a man. The word vir in virtues literally means manly, or also strength, if you're trying to look at a different translation. To have strongness, to be virtuous is to be strong, to be manly, to do the good thing and to do it habitually. That's what it means to be manly. That's what it means to be strong. So these people who want to put on the externals of a man don't make the man. And I think it'd be a good conversation to have at some point is the idea of a rite of passage. Like, you were not allowed, like the Amish, the boys are not allowed to grow beards. Once you go through the rite of passage among the Amish community, then you're allowed to grow a beard, which is why you see Amish men have so big, large beards, because it's like, okay, you're a boy, you're starting to grow facial hair, shave, because you're not allowed to have a beard. Once you become a man, and we tell you when you're a man, then you can have a beard. And I think that's a good idea.
That's what Shia LaBeouf was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
About how there's no rite of passage now. So
Yeah.
he's like, how do you know when you're a man? And he was talking about like 40-year-old boys and all that.
Yeah. Yep. Good take. Okay. So this next clip is Jordan Peterson on kind of what's same things we've been talking about. So I won't do much of an introduction. So here it is.
What about looking back over history? You've written the idea that women were oppressed throughout history is an appalling theory.
Guys, if you're watching,
they haven't had a
stop
great
doing
time,
this.
though, have they?
They take photos.
Who
of
has had a
themselves. They're
great
18,
time in history?
Cigar in their mouth.
Men have had less of a
Really?
shitty
Have
time.
they? Have they? By what standard? By what standard?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're a woman...
How about war? History is a rough business. Everybody had it rough. In 1895, the typical Westerner lived on less than $1 a day, which is absolute poverty by today's standard. And so people were brutally poor for almost the entire course of human history. It was rough. You say, well, did men or women have it worse? One of the things you can say is everybody had it pretty damn bad. Most of the time, men and women helped each other. Women raised their sons. Husbands protected their families. I'm not buying this whole, the sexes have been at each other's throats the entire history of mankind. It's like, no, wrong. And then one level deeper than that, I don't like the whole game. The whole game is, let's divide people into groups and contrast their oppression. Fine, play it. See what happens. You're not going to like it.
What about looking back over history? You've written the idea...
Okay, so I'll let you have first take.
Not much, man. I mean, it's along the lines of what we've been listening to. I think Jordan Peterson is right. It's crazy how much better Peterson sounds when he's talking about this stuff versus like religion or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's right. I really don't have much to add to that.
Perfect. Yeah, the same thing. It's what we've been talking about, and I think you're right. Whenever he talks about things about masculinity,
It's weird because he's
right on
so
point.
clear.
Yeah.
When he's talking about this stuff, and then when he talks about God and religion, it's like word salad.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
crazy.
we'll get to that in a second too. But okay, so we'll just go ahead because that's more of the same of what we've been talking about. But yeah, it's not much to say there. He's saying basically what we've been saying, like, victim mentality. It's silly. Men have it hard. And he's like, if you want to do comparison, an authentic comparison, well, let's do a comparison, and you might not like the outcome.
Yeah.
So anyway, here's a thing about speed of Andrew Tate. He talks about, like, you have to do things quickly. You got to do speed, attack your life. And there's good to it, but also there's not good to it as well. So we'll see.
Speed is extremely important. Speed defies gravity. How does a plane fly through the air and defy gravity? Speed.
I don't think that's true.
It's moving too fast to fall. If you're always attacking life, if you're always doing things, if you're always making more money, if you're always traveling the world, doing this, doing that, new car, here, there, new podcast, meeting James English, boom, boom, boom. If you're always doing things all the time, unhappiness can't catch you. I'm always looking forward to something. I wake up every day excited. I'll go do this today. I'll go do this today. I'll go do this today. And I very much live my life in a frame of, no, I have to do this. It's very much a, I get to do this. There's another thing that a lot of people make a mistake with when I talk to them, like, I have to go to work today. Change your language. I get to go to work today. Imagine you had no job. It'd be worse, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be working. So you get to go to work. I have to fix the car. At least you have a car. You get to fix your car. Most people don't got one. I have to go get the kids. You get to go get the kids because you have these beautiful children who love you. Speed.
Yep, that's good stuff right there. The beginning stuff, the beginning of it, I'm not the biggest fan because
I mean, it's just I'm not really surprised by it. It's kind of typical modern men kind of thing where it's like, get the cars and the women and go 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 and is what it is. But yeah, the second point is really good.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, same thing. The second part was good because he was talking about you need to be grateful. Is basically what he's saying. You need to be grateful for what you have, and I think that's a good message. That's a message that everybody can agree with. The first half, there's an element of truth to it. It's not good, the materialistic aspect of it, but his go do things, go.
Yeah.
That is actually good.
Yeah.
To an extent. You need to slow down.
Yeah.
There needs to be silence in your life so you can pray, so you can meditate, so you can do these things. And by meditate, I mean mental prayer, not Buddhist meditation garbage. It's very popular nowadays. But the other thing is, idle hands are the devil's playground. So how do you avoid getting yourself into trouble? How do you avoid the near occasion of sin? Well, like you said, do. Go and do things. If you're just sitting at home in your room on your phone, well, then bad things happen. But if you're out working, if you're out at the gym, if you're doing a project, if you have a hobby, you're reading a book, you're doing things, you're busy. And that's good because then it keeps you out of trouble. That's why there's a saying, the idle hands are the devil's playground, because it's true. And so in that element, he's right. His element of wrong is what you should be doing with your time. Go get girls. Go get a fast car. Travel the world. That's materialistic and not ideal. And then like we said, the second half, great stuff. I'll let you finish your thought as well.
Yeah. So a common thing with men these days is that they would, like you said, try to go and never take a rest. The great thing about Christianity is that you have a mandatory rest day. And I've noticed that a lot of guys will be content just working every day. And they're like, well, you got to hustle, you got to get on the grind. And so that's the kind of the mindset Andrew has there. And so I think it's always interesting that we have like a mandatory rest day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just think that's interesting.
No, that's a good point. And like how did this conversation even start? It was you and I, we got together, we just chatted for hours.
Yeah.
After Mass, we went to Mass. We went and got breakfast or lunch after Mass with some buddies of ours. And then afterwards, we headed over to my place and we sat on the porch and we just chatted for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Sunday. It's like, it's like you don't need to do things.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do things that are necessarily productive.
Yeah.
But it's still good for you.
Yeah.
It's good to have friends. It's good to do things that are leisurely. And I think that's lost in a lot of things. And what you do with your leisure time. Like your Sunday is like, don't profane Sunday, right? So going out drinking, going out clubbing, things like that, that's profaning Sunday. So it's a day of rest. But what you do with that rest is also important. So anyway, here's the next thing. I think this one has a lot of vulgar language, but I'll clean it up. So
responsibility over her, then I must have a degree of authority. For the same reason, if I have responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority. You cannot be responsible for something that doesn't listen to you. You can't be responsible for a dog if it doesn't obey you. Or a woman doesn't obey you.
A super sexist path.
It's not sexist to say I'm responsible
just said
for her.
If you compared a woman to a dog and a baby.
Yeah, and I knew that was going to be. That's why I said everyone's going to lose their mind. It's just
maybe pick some better ones then if you want the women to listen to you.
There's two kinds of people, right? There's people who will understand that it's simply an analogy, and I'm trying to make a point, and there's people who are going to be offended by the analogy in and of itself, and they're different levels of IQ.
The different levels of IQ. That's good stuff. That's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, that one is very controversial. That one. And also, I agree with, what's the guy's name?
Dave Portnoy.
Dave Portnoy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's with Barstool Sports.
Yeah.
And I agree with what he's saying. Analogy is not good. The analogy is, he did it on purpose. I listened to his long interview when he did the 5-hour interview, and he talks about this interview. He said, yeah, I did that on purpose because I wanted to make him mad, because I wanted to humiliate him, basically. He was like, I wanted to show that I'm dominant over him. And so I say something that's objectively true, but I presented it in the worst possible way to make everybody mad. And I'm like, dude, why
was it that bad?
Well, it's saying that like, oh, your wife is like a dog. Your wife or your girl is like a dog, is like a baby. It's like, obviously, people are going to freak out about that as soon as you say those words.
Not entirely wrong, but
the analogy. So like
I
analogously,
get
yes, you can compare the situation, but using those words is unnecessarily inflammatory. And he knows that he's going to do that. And he even says as much. He's like, yeah, I knew that was going to make everybody upset. He's like, but my point is still accurate. And his point, what was his point here? His point was rights and duties. Now, he gets it wrong because he talks about his girl and not his wife. He talks about it this way, is like, my girlfriends. That's where it goes wrong. But the right part is rights and duties. A man has a duty to protect his wife. A man has a duty to provide for his wife. A man has a duty to do these things for his family. But if you have a duty to do something, there is a corresponding right. So if you have a duty to do something, you must have the right to be able to execute that thing. So just like you have a duty to worship God, therefore you have a right to worship God. And the same thing is true of all rights and duties. If you have a duty to something, there must be a corresponding right. So if you have a duty to take care of your family, to take care of your wife, to die for your wife, as Christ says that a man has to love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave up his life for the church. And people love to talk about that passage. And it's true. That passage is 100% true. But what does that correspond to? That corresponds to a right. And what is that right? The right is the wife has to be submissive to her husband. And so the wife has to listen to her husband and do what he says when he makes a decision. Now, obviously, there's the, and I have to give disclaimers because people will freak out. Obviously, they are equal in dignity, but they're not equal in anything else. They're equal in dignity. They're equal before the eyes of God. It's not like you're slaves or anything like that. It's a submission of love. And so the woman has to be subordinate to the husband, has to listen to what he says. She can give counsel. She can do things. She can tell her husband what she wants, and her husband should hear her, should take it into consideration, but ultimately it's his decision. Ultimately, he has to make decisions that are for the good of the family. And he's saying, okay, if I have a duty to protect my girl and we're walking down the street and I tell her, hey, you move over here, because he's like, oh, I think there might be a bad situation. Or he say, hey, stop talking, because he has deals with the mafia. And so he's like, hey, I don't want you saying anything, because he's knows that he might get in trouble with the mafia. Well, that's what he's trying to get at. Now, the problem is, you don't actually have any of that authority over your girlfriends. That doesn't happen until, and according to Catholic teaching, the woman has to start practicing submission to her husband once you're engaged. And then you actually have the duty of submission once you're married. But before that, you actually don't have that. And so I'll let you have your take.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's funny that I'm not surprised Dave Portnoy and Barstool got very triggered. Barstool is the what you would consider the secular normie masculinity, like fa masculinity, I guess. And so I think them talking to Andrew Tate and Andrew Tate proving that Barstool is very not manly at all. I think that's the funniest part of that interview. And I think it's like you're talking about bending that bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's doing here. And I think I love when people are that brash and they're making points like that, even if it's going to trigger everyone. I prefer that than the Jordan Peterson approach, and I think that's why Andrew Tate is so popular. In many ways, for I think the average normal guy, I think Andrew Tate is more popular than Peterson now. And it's great. I think men should hear that, and young men should listen to that. And when they do get married, they need to start demanding this respect and submission from their wives, which I would wager 90% of modern marriages are not like that.
Yeah,
non-religious, probably more.
Yeah.
And again, it's a thing where it's like we need men saying these things so that young men will get it in their heads and they'll spread it amongst themselves, and then they'll start demanding these things of women. Because everyone wants to blame men. They're like, well, yeah, women are weak, but men let them get like that. And it's like, well, we're trying, so we're gonna start trying, and they're gonna complain, but just stick to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And And ultimately, I think you're right. Men like straightforwardness. They like brashness. They like things straightforward. Don't try to beat around the bush. Just tell me the truth. I want to hear it straight. That's what they like. Like, you're the straight man. He tells you how it is. And men like that. The problem is a lot of these things, because they're in the public square, everyone sees it. And then men show virtue by saying, oh, I denounce this guy because he's being mean to women. And so, yeah, that's an element of it, which is why there needs to be spaces where men get together and just hang out with men. So men can be men. Because as soon as you place a woman into the situation, everything changes. You're not going to be as abrasive. You're not going to be the same way, because you really should not be that way to women. Women should be treated with chivalry, with softness, with love, these kind of things. That's how women should be treated. And so, yeah, you should change the way you're speaking around women. But that's why we need spaces where men hang out with men and just men. And that's why these kind of situations are problematic, because they're in the public square where everyone sees it. And then men are like, and men act differently when women are around. And so they're like, okay, I know women are going to see this, so now I have to denounce it. And that's what I'm doing here on this podcast, because I know women are going to be listening to this as well as men. And so I'm like, okay, for the women out there, this is the disclaimer. Obviously, we're not saying to hate women. Obviously, I'm not saying we can do these things the other. Obviously, I'm not saying that. We're trying to say the good parts of it. So anyway, we'll move on to the next one. But if Les wanted to say something else.
Yeah, so I agree women should not be talked to that way. But a lot of women put themselves in positions where they have to be talked to in more brash ways. And I think that's why I like Andrew. And I think hopefully more men become less afraid to stand up to women that are behaving badly. And yeah, that's about all that I have to add to it.
All right, here's the next take. And this one will make all the Jordan Peterson fanatics upset. So
the way you talk about religion is that at the end of all these conversations, I'm still not sure what you believe on that point, frankly.
Well, I don't know why you would expect to be sure about what someone believes. How do you think that any one of you are capable of fully articulating what you believe? You certainly aren't. You are not. That's completely ridiculous. You're not transparent to yourself by any stretch of the imagination. You act out all sorts of things that you can't articulate. If you look, let's go all cognitive neuroscience on this, shall we? 99% of your processing is unconscious. You're not capable of articulating yourselves. If you were, you'd be omniscient. Okay, but don't give me any nonsense about that.
But that is a...
Okay, so that's the Peterson one that makes a lot of people... people were saying that this is Peterson crushing Sam Harris, which Sam Harris is an atheist. I don't agree with Sam Harris. The problem is Peterson is basically Sam Harris. He's asked, do you believe in God? And he's like, well, it depends what you mean by God. By God, I mean, and he gives this long definition. He's like, it would take me 4 hours to explain what I mean. And then then Sam Harris comes back at him and is like, okay, well, the resurrection, for instance. You say, do you believe in the resurrection? He goes, well, it's not that simple. It would take 40 hours lecture for me to explain what I believe about the resurrection. It's like, it's not that hard.
AKA no.
Yes or
basically.
no? Yes, exactly. Yeah, AKA no. And that's what Sam Harris says. And I'm like, okay, then you're on the same page. Sam Harris and Peterson are on the same page. That's such a
that's crazy.
It's insane. And so it's entirely word salad, which we were just talking about a second ago about men want a straight man. So anyway, people hear Peterson talk about the man stuff, and they're like, oh, I love him talking about the man stuff. So they get hooked on his psychology stuff, and that's where it becomes a problem. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they think, well, it's psychology, so it's more complicated. So, I don't understand what he's saying, so it must be true, right? He owns Sam Harris because he used all these big words and all this stuff, when it's like, it's a yes or no. Like, do you believe, what did Sam Harris ask?
He said, do you believe in God? And then he gave the long definition. He said, okay, but we're talking about the definition of God that 99.9% people mean.
Yeah, because Peterson was like, well, God is the collective imagination and truth of what everyone is in their heads, and it was nonsense. And so Sam Harris was like, no, do you believe in God as in how every other person means it? Yeah. Not in this kind of weird word salad way, but yeah, listening to that, it's like he's almost like a completely different person.
Yeah, it's
than those other clips that you played, and where he's talking to these women and just like telling them how it is, and then And yeah, like I don't like Sam Harris, but
Yeah,
he comes across so good when he's debating Peterson, just because Peterson won't tell you what he thinks about this stuff. He'll mask it and be like, well, it's gonna take me 40 hours to explain it, and it's like, what does that mean? That's not a response.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Sam Harris is like, people are applauding, but you just avoided the question.
I watched that part of that or I don't know what it was, a debate with them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the full thing. And Peterson he'll say like one word and everyone will start clapping.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Fanboys.
What is this?
And we have friends like that. You and I do, or we used to. That kind of changed over time. They kind of calmed down a little bit. But whenever we first were friends with them, they were like, I think you were kind of the similar camp earlier on with the Jordan Peterson phenomenon of like just the Jordan Peterson types, the Andrew Tate types are just like, oh yeah, these are great. And then you kind of
I mean, I started when I started getting into like right wing stuff. One of the first guys was Jordan Peterson because that's when he was blowing up. And he was being very truthful. He was like, I won't use your pronouns. And that was his big thing. That's why he blew up, is because he refused to use the pronouns of trans kids or whatever at his school. Because I don't know if is he still a college professor? He was.
I don't think so.
I guess he's been kicked off by this point. But yeah, he was being very truthful. And so it was very refreshing to hear. And then I started listening to his biblical lectures, and it's weird because he'll be like, yeah, these stories are very true, but when he says true, he doesn't mean like as in they happened.
Yeah, he means true in a symbolic sense.
Yeah. So that at that point is when I started getting into more Catholic stuff is when I started kind of veering away from Peterson. But
yeah, I
mean, he's a good stepping stone, I guess.
Yeah, major problem.
I'd rather have him around than be canceled.
Yeah, I agree. So Peterson is a stepping stone, I think, and I think he's been that way for a lot of our friends, where he's kind of been someone who leads to something greater, and in that sense, he's good. In the other sense, like we're saying, like, and that's one thing I like him more about Andrew Tate is he did say, "I will not lie, I will be truthful."
Yeah.
And whereas Tate has explicitly said that he will lie to get an advantage. He said, "I'll be true to myself, but I will." That he's okay with lying.
Yeah.
Whereas Peterson has said, "I will not lie." He said, and at the very least, I will. He goes, "I'll always tell the truth, or at the very least, I will not lie." And so it's like, well, if I don't want to tell the truth, then I just want to answer your question.
Yeah.
And I think that's very honorable. I think that's good. But yeah, heck, this whole thing was ridiculous because Sam Harris comes back at him. He's like, well, if someone asked me, like, do I believe in ghosts? And you're like, no, I don't believe in ghosts. We're like, oh, well, by ghost, I mean the historical aspect of your ancestors living in your subconscious. And he's like, that's what I mean by ghosts. Like, well, then everybody believes in ghosts.
Yeah.
But that's not what we mean when we talk about ghosts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the whole point. Anyway, so here's a good clip from Peterson crying, which is actually, there's an element where I'm like, I'm mentioning a cry. But at the same time, I'm like, well, at the same time, it's okay in certain circumstances. And so this is Peterson and that situation.
There's a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice. It's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky. And all these men who are alienated, they're lonesome and they don't know what to do. And everyone piles abuse on them.
Film director Olivia Wilde.
Okay, so this is, and in one sense, I don't like men crying. I don't think men should cry, especially in public. If men have to cry, it should be in private. And then the saints have cried. There's holy tears, and those are good things. But there's an element where men have to have a sense of stoicism and not cry in public. But it's hard. Especially Peterson is clearly a very empathetic and emotional man. And this, I think, is beautiful because he is recognizing the pain of men. He's recognizing that so many men have been so disenchanted, has been ostracized, have been hated by the world. And these people, if there's a school shooter, they call him an incel. And then anyone who is on that spectrum of being lonely. They're like, okay, you're an incel. And so you're the same thing as those school shooters. You're the same thing as those guys. And he's weeping for those people and saying it's not right. Everyone wants to talk about the oppressed, the suffering, and things like that. But then when men are that way, no one wants to care. No one cares about men that way. And he does. And so he's like, okay, fine. If you want to say I'm the intellectual hero of the incels, sure. I'll take that title because someone has to stand up for these people. And so I will. And in that sense, I think that was a very good thing for Peterson.
Yeah, that clip made me respect Peterson more just because of I knew he was on the side of disenfranchised young men, but he's really owning up to being like their surrogate father. And I saw comments and stuff about how when he goes on these talks, he'll do meet and greets. And so he talks to a lot of these men, and he's told stories of how like they've gone up to him and told him, "Oh, you've changed my life," and all this stuff. I think it's great. This is why people love or men love Peterson, and they also love Andrew Tate, is because they finally see someone standing up for them, where no one else in the modern world stands up for them. They do the opposite, and they just get crapped on by everyone. And so that's why women don't care for these two or dislike them, because it's not for them. Like, these guys aren't talking to you, and then women like can't stand the fact that someone's not like catering it to them.
Yeah.
So it's a great clip.
Yeah, I thought so too. So ultimately, I think that one was good. Here's one last clip, and then we'll have closing thoughts on this whole situation. Basically, this is the kind of format I'll do for the end. I'll let you have last one word. I'll say one word. I'll let you have last word, then I'll wrap up. So here's one last clip, and let's see. This one is about mental health. This is also everything that we've done is a controversial here. Hopefully I don't get canceled after all this. Here you go.
There is not an eminent doctor in the world
Pierce
who would agree with it.
Pierce,
do you think you know more than doctors?
I can't become clinically depressed.
Why do you know?
Because I don't believe in it. I can't be haunted by a ghost if I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, it's like saying I'm never going to die because I don't believe in it. It's ridiculous.
Perhaps, but if it allows me to live a life where I feel happy
But here's
and
where you
within
see,
myself.
this is that little area where you lose me.
No, I don't lose you.
You are,
because
Pierce, somebody with your following says
the thousands of people who have emailed me saying my doctor told me I was clinically depressed and it's a disease that I have got in my brain and I can't be fixed. And I started listening to you and I realized that that's not the case and I can fix my own life, and you're the only person who has ever helped me. Thousands of people have emailed me that exact email. I don't believe.
Okay, so he says, I don't believe in things that take my power away, is the line he gives at the beginning. And I think that there's an element of truth here and there's an element of falsity here. And if you listen to my podcast on what is truth that I just did last time, I mentioned it before a second ago, and I talk about that truth is the conformity of the mind to reality. So reality exists already, and it is our duty to figure out what reality is, and then if or what is in our mind is in discontinuity with it, we are to bring it into continuity, and that is truth. And I don't actually believe that Andrew Tate believes what he's saying here. I don't believe that he means what he says when he says, I don't believe in things that take my power away in general. I think he means I don't give it power. I will dismiss it. I will conquer it. I will do other things. And he's just making a rhetorical point, but taking him at face value, saying that he does believe what he's saying. That's an error, because we have to love truth. We have to love wisdom, because our Lord is the way, the truth, and the life. Our Lord is the eternal wisdom itself. He is the Logos that we see in John 1. And so we have to love the truth. We have to seek the truth. We want to know the truth, for the truth will set you free. However, his point on mental health, I think, is very good, and it's true. His point about ghosts is not good and not true, because he says, like, okay, if I don't believe in ghosts, it's not going to actually do anything. Well, it doesn't matter if you believe in them or not. If you don't believe in demons, demons can still hurt you. If you don't believe in a shooter who's pointing a gun at you in front of your face, it doesn't matter what you believe. He's going to kill you. Same thing here. Now, his point about mental health, saying we actually recently had studies that come out and saying that the whole thing of depression, we were wrong about it. And the medicine's not helping. The medicine's making things worse. And they're finding this out recently. And so he's actually right. And so we're seeing this, and I think it's 100% facts. Are we saying and my mom told me this when I was a kid. My mom told me, because I wanted to get tested for ADHD. And I was like, I am obviously ADHD. If you ever meet me in real life, if you ever hang out with me, I'm obviously what the world would consider ADHD. I can't sit still. I walk around. I want to do things. I get distracted, all these things. But my mom was like, I'm not getting you tested for ADHD because then you're going to use it as a crutch for the rest of your life. And so we never did that. And she was 100% correct. I would have done that. I would have used it as a crutch, and I did not need to. I ended up succeeding anyway because I just said, okay, we'll just endure it. And the same thing with depression. Depression is most of the time, it's either demonic or it's your own self, and you need to just overcome it. You need to fight against it. And Tate, along with Peterson, have talked about how people have overcome it. Though Peterson may have dealt with real depression, because I also think there's an element of truth to it, that there could be an element where you can actually be seriously, in reality, something wrong with your brain. And I think that was the case for Peterson, because once he changed his diet, the depression went away. So it's possible that there's an element of truth to it. But I think the vast, vast, vast majority of the case, it's yourself. Your take?
Yeah. So I agree on that first part about the whole truth and all that. The main point I took from that clip was the whole depression thing, and more specifically, how he said thousands of, I don't know if it's literal thousands, maybe. I mean, he's everywhere. He had a lot of followers on Instagram before that got banned, and I'm pretty sure you could just DM him whenever you wanted to. And so the impact he's had is crazy. And I think it was crazy to me when he said that these men were telling him that you're the only person that's ever helped me. And I believe that because nobody is standing up for men aside select few people. And when they do, they get, people try to cancel them. And so I think that's really, I don't know, I guess heartwarming in a sense, that he's had all these men message him that, you helped me turn things around. And I believe it. And this is why, like I was saying earlier, this is why these guys are so popular with men, is that they're surrogate fathers in a sense to a lot of these guys. And instead of Peterson and Andrew Tate crapping on them and being like, well, you guys are, a bunch of wussies and you guys suck, they'll point out the problems with their lives, but then they'll give you tips and encourage you to be better. And clearly it works. I mean, we know Peterson, a lot of guys have changed because of him. And like Andrew Tate is saying, he gets a bunch of messages, and, guys are loving it. Young men need this stuff. And it sucks that we're in this position at all. We should have, strong fathers should be normal, but we're not in that world. And we're in this really bad state. And for the time being, if these are the guys we need, then personally, I welcome it. And hopefully it is a stepping stone. Obviously, hopefully this isn't what we get forever, right? Guys like these. But hopefully things do improve, and hopefully these guys are stepping stones. And as far as the depression thing goes, yeah, I agree. I think most people who say they have depression, it's probably diet, exercise, not doing things. I know when I used to work from home, and I would take classes online, and I would be on the computer a lot. That was it made me feel depressed. That's why I have a job now that doesn't require me working from home, because I get you get to be home, and I'm sure once you have a family, that's really great. But I don't know, for me, just sitting in one place all day makes me depressed. And a lot of people probably don't even really know that about themselves. And so they'll go to the doctor, and they'll get these meds that don't do anything, and probably does make it worse. They get addicted. And so I think it's good that Andrew Tate is telling these men to stop that. And like you said, there probably are some people out there that really do have major issues in their head. I mean, I don't doubt it, but is it as prevalent as it is? There's no way. There's no way it's this prevalent. Yeah. I'm sure there's exceptions to everything. So I'm sure there's people that it's unfortunate, but it's not the majority of men like you see now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was talking about like skepticism. People fall into skepticism that makes them depressed. And the cure for that is get off the internet. Is go touch grass.
Yeah.
And it's actually talked about in The Intellectual Life, which was published 100 years ago. He's like, yeah, some people fall into skepticism and they start getting depressed. They think nothing exists except themselves and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, just go touch grass.
Yeah.
Just literally go outside, go do some hard work, and it'll go away. because you've been inside too much, reading too many books. And he says this in the intellectual life, and it's promoting reading books. He's like, you're reading too many books. This is before the internet. Now it's so much worse. Now it's everyone.
This was written before the internet?
This was written way before the internet.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And he's talking about people who stay inside, they read a bunch of philosophy books, and they become depressed because they become skeptics. And like, reading all these philosophers have made me skeptical because you're reading bad philosophers. And he's like, go outside, go touch grass, go do some hard work, and you're going to actually become better. You're going to realize that things exist because you'll feel it. It's reality. And he's like, you can make arguments against skepticism, but the easiest thing is just go outside. Just go eat some good food. Go do something with your friends. And that's basically what these guys are saying. Okay, so that's closing thoughts. What's your general overview about these two characters and the movement as a whole? Last thoughts, then I'll give my last thoughts, and then there you
go. So I tend to disagree with the Catholic guys. Whom I like. I like these guys, and I get why they're denouncing someone like Tate. I agree on their points on why some things Tate says is bad, but I think it's such a net positive that young men are being exposed to these ideas, and it's so much better than what they're getting at public schools, even on YouTube, like Barstool Sports. I don't think that's good for men.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't see much of a benefit. I mean, it's all about partying and there's no substance to it. At least with Tate, there is substance to it. Even if you disagree with we do disagree with the marriage stuff and the cam girls and all that stuff and the line, but there's still a lot of substance to what he's saying. And I think it shows. The results really are speaking for themselves. And I've even, anecdotally, I have a cousin who has started being like anti-feminist because of a lot of these things he's heard from Andrew Tate, and has started arguing these things in person with family members, and I think that's great. I mean, is it better just to lie down and let the feminists take over, or are you going to speak up? And so I really like that aspect about Andrew Tate. I think really overall I like him. I like Jordan Peterson too, but Andrew Tate, for whatever reason, he destroyed the algorithm to where he was like the main guy over the summer. I don't know what it looks like now that he's been canceled. I still get his videos on YouTube Shorts, but I don't know if that's just because I'm personally interested or because everyone else is getting it. But I think it's been a net positive, and hopefully, like I said, he turns into a stepping stone. Like for me, the Manosphere stuff back in 2018, that was a stepping stone, right? I'm not stuck in those days anymore. I ended up converting to Catholicism after that, and that was definitely a stepping stone. That didn't hinder me from converting. There was bad ideas in there, but once I got further into Christianity, then I dropped the bad things and kept the good things. So, I know a lot of guys are denouncing them, but I like Andrew Tate. I think he's a net positive.
There you go. Praise be to God. And my final thoughts is basically, I agree with everything you're saying. Obviously the bad things are, which if you saw the video with Kennedy Hall, he did a video on this topic, and I've interviewed Kennedy Hall many times. I have his phone number. I don't dislike Kennedy Hall. I like most of what he put out, but I think he got most of his information from liberal sources about him and slandered him basically in his video, which I thought was not good, not very Catholic of him.
And he wasn't wrong when he was saying that, shacking up with these women doesn't make you, it's not virtuous, doesn't make you manly. I mean, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that part he was right about. That part he was right about. The part where he said that he was a human trafficker, that's not true. That's just false.
Completely, nobody has any proof.
Yeah, that's slander. If it is true, there's no proof of it.
Yeah.
And so we should not say that, because you wouldn't, unless it's proven that he did do that, we shouldn't say that. What is true is that he did get his money from starting cam girls, and that's disgusting. That's bad. We condemn that. And you have to take the good, you have to take the bad, and that's the case across anyone who's secular. Anyone, if you watch anyone, if you like Kanye West, if you like any kind of person who's secular, if you like 80s rock music, you're listening to people who worship Satan. So you have to take the good and the bad, unless you want to condemn it all. And I'm okay with condemning it all. I'm okay with just sticking with Catholic sources. And so I'm okay with that. But most people are not. And so there's an element of there's good to them being there. And I think that's good. And so I think what we did was have a fair view, a fair look at these people and give them a fair shake. If you want to respond to anything I said, and then I'll.
Oh yeah, I mean, I respect the people who were condemning Andrew Tate, but it's just I like that Tate and Peterson are like a champion for these young men. They're taking these guys upon their shoulders, and I really respect that. And I think I like focusing on the problems of men as well. And I think it helps a lot of young men out. And I've been where those young men are at many times. And so Jordan Peterson has spoken to me in the past, back in the day. I'm sure if Andrew Tate was coming out back, well, I was listening to Andrew Tate on like Twitter and stuff, but he really was, a lot of his stuff was trolling, and it was less serious than it is now. But yeah, I get why people are condemning, but I can't bring myself to turn my back on these young guys. These young guys are very misguided, and if they're just taking some truth from Andrew Tate, then I think it's good. And a lot of these guys are very far from converting anytime soon. And so really, I'll take what I can get from young men when it comes to these like right-wing or more conservative ideas. So
awesome. Praise be to God. Okay, so that'll conclude our topic on this topic. If you stayed this long, well, praise be to God. Thanks for staying for so long. But finally, let's pray for their conversion. How amazing would it be if these two became Catholic and became authentically Catholic? That would change everything. It would be like St. Ignatius. It would be like some of these Roman soldiers who converted. That'd be such a beautiful thing. So let's pray for their conversion. Also, let's take the good and with the bad. But if you're going to condemn someone like Andrew Tate, if you're going to condemn someone like Jordan Peterson, then you have to present an alternative, which means for men, you need to become manly. Men, you need to act like real men, because who's going to listen to you if you're fat, lazy, and not doing anything whenever Andrew Tate is a professional kickboxer, chess champion, and acting like a man? Who are they going to believe? So you need to act like a man. You need to become masculine so people will take you seriously. And secondly, we have to present alternatives. There are good things out there. The Catholic Gentleman podcast is great. Kennedy Hall is great. He exercises, he works out, and he's a good man. He does good things. Timothy Flanders. There's a lot of men out there who are saying these things. Even Timothy Gordon. I don't really love everything Timothy Gordon puts out, but he is speaking to the same kind of audience. And he is fighting feminism from a Catholic perspective. So that's good as well. So there are alternatives, but don't just condemn these people outright. Give them a real and authentic alternative.
Yeah, I wanted to add that I get that the young men now are a mess, but I think it's very detrimental to put them down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, I understand there are like 30-year-old man babies out there. There's 18-year-olds that don't know anything, but it's like, present the alternative without putting them down. Because if you're putting these guys down, then they're not going to listen to you, and they're just going to go to like Andrew Tate, and they're never going to listen to you.
Yep.
So I think, I don't know, I'm very pro bringing up modern men and trying to make them better. And I think that's what Andrew Tate and JP and Jordan Peterson are doing.
Amen. All right. Praise be to God. That'll conclude. We'll close out in an Ave Maria as usual. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with a man that you think needs to hear this message, to hear the good, the bad, understand the pitfalls, understand the good parts. Share this with a man that you think will benefit from this. And then, like I said, like, subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you hate this, if you love this. Give me your feedback. Do you want more things like this? More things need to exist like this. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And we'll close out with an Ave Maria as usual, and we'll pray to the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is the one who every man loves, the one who inspires us to virtue, inspires us to be men of God, to be men like her son, like her spouse, the Saint Joseph. So let's pray for those intentions. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Our Lady of Sorrows,
pray for us.
Saint Joseph, terror of demons,
pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.